everyone, and welcome into the Writers Roundtable. I'm Taylor Stern with Brian Broaddus, Rob Phillips, and Nick Eatman. We are actually less than 3 months until the players, coaches are back in the building, getting ready for the 2019 season. So I'll start with you first, Brian. Who is the player or coach that needs to have the best offseason?
You said coach.
I did.
You knew where I was going here, didn't you? Yeah, you knew where I was going. It's got to be Kellen Moore, because Kellen Moore is going to be your primary play caller this year. And he's got to figure out things. He's got to get his game plan together. He's got to get his playbook together. Yeah, it might be a lot of what's going on with what we've seen before. Maybe some of the things, the concepts that we've seen with Jason Garrett, maybe some things from Scott Linehan. But Kellen Moore really needs to have a great offseason. He needs to come up with a plan. He needs to come up with kind of look at him as a teacher. He needs to come up with a great lesson plan so he can be able to convey it to these players, to coaches. He's got to bring everybody on board. He needs to have a great offseason, not only learning about what he wants to do, but also applying it, and then also conveying the message to the team so everybody knows what Kellen Moore wants to do as a play caller.
Yeah, crazy to think that just 2 off seasons ago, he was the player.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Life's coming at you fast, right?
It does for Kellen Moore.
It does. I'm going to go with Randy Gregory, shifted back to the roster, a guy that rejoined the team back in training camp in late July, basically 2 years out of football. And what he did, the progressive impact he made on this defense was really impressive. He wound up with 6 sacks. There's only 2 guys in the last 5 seasons for the Cowboys that have had more, DeMarcus Lawrence and David Irving a couple years ago. So he's got room to grow. I think one thing he can continue to build on is keep that frame. 240, 245 pounds can make him an every down player potentially instead of just a pass situations guy. That might be the next step for him. But just being back in the program for a full offseason can only help him out. I
know there are probably other names we could mention, but would Randy Gregory qualify for one of the most improved players over the last season and how much he took advantage of the last offseason?
I don't even know if it's player. It's just improved his life. You know, you were saying all that, Rob.
Improved our thoughts about it,
right?
Yeah.
As a player and person.
Yeah, I was. If we don't hear his name in the offseason, that's probably a really good thing.
Yeah.
You know. My guy about improving, and I like what everyone's saying, and Dak, you know, would probably be in that mix, of course, because you talked about being a great teacher for Kellen Moore. He's got to be a great student. But I'm going to go with Connor Williams because, you know, the one thing about him is he's going to play at some point. They really like what he's going to do at guard or a tackle. I talked to Mark Colombo last week in Orlando, and he said we really put a lot on our guards to be athletic. We think he's going to be a guard, but one thing he's got to do is get stronger, and that's what happens in the offseason, getting stronger. So I think a good offseason for Connor Williams is getting that weight room. We see big changes from year 1 to 2. So
anybody thinking about Taco at all? You know, I mean, because this group has been, this front office has done a great job about drafting guys. And if you look at all the Pro Bowl guys, they were all drafted guys.
Yep.
You know, Taco was a guy that they drafted. Yeah, it was in the, late in the first round, but still though, if there's a guy that started off well and then just faded away at the end, it was Taco Charlton. And you could maybe include him with Randy, depending on what happens too with these defensive ends, with Lawrence, with that situation. They might have to lean on Gregory. They might have to lean on Taco. They might have to lean on these guys if things don't work out like they think it's going to work.
Yeah, and you're talking about the Pro Bowl, and you're talking about the offensive line. Well, Tyron Smith and Zach Martin weren't able to go to the Pro Bowl because they're trying to rest, get themselves better, start that immediately. And I think those guys could do it. Travis Frederick, there's plenty of guys on this roster.
I got another one too, Blake Jarwin. We'll see what happens at tight end if they draft someone or free agency or both or whatever, but definitely Blake Jarwin's a guy. And I guess we're talking about younger guys, for me, younger guys that get in that weight room, get a little stronger, be a little bit better as a blocker. I think Jarwin, Schultz too, those 2 guys have a chance to make some move here.
Yeah, well, thanks for all you guys did last week at the Senior Bowl and Pro Bowl. We will have you covered straight until the offseason really gets started. Join us on DallasCowboys.com, and thanks so much for watching.